Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Cadenhead Amateur Dram Antique Society tasting. Tonight I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to run through how to make a blended whiskey at home. And what I have is I got a kit from the Spirits Embassy. You see there's Shivers do a kit as well. And in the kit you get a measuring cone. You get a sheet to write down your notes about the flavour characteristics, the blend recipe, and so on. And you also get a little sheet with sorry about this, a sheet with the where to put your little bottles when you're mixing, and you get a glass bottle with a rubber stopper to put your finished whiskey in. So you get 5 whiskies of different characteristics, including a grain, a peated malt, a floral malt, a rich malt, and the fruity malt. And you also get a sample of Duncan Taylor's Black Bull 12-year-old blended whiskey. So making a blended whiskey, well, blended whiskey is made by combining different whiskies, typically single malt and single grain, to create a desired flavour profile. The master blender plays a crucial role, selecting and marrying various whiskies to achieve a specific taste and consistency. And this blending process often involves a marriage period where the blended whiskey rests in cask to harmonise the flavours. So for the selection and analysis, single malt and single grain, blended Scotch whisky is a combination of single malt made from malted barley and single grain, made sometimes from other grains like wheat or maize. The master blender's role is responsible for selecting the individual whiskies based on their flavour characteristics and their potential to contribute to the overall blend. And he'll also nose and taste each whisky throughout the maturation to assess its development and suitability for the blend. The selected whiskies are then combined in large blending vats, and then a marriage period takes place in which the blended whisky is transferred to cask for a period of maturation, often up to 8 months, known as the marriage. And during this time, the different whiskies harmonise and integrate their flavours. So they're looking for consistency. They're looking to create a consistent flavour profile that can be reproduced year after year, despite variations in the individual whiskies used. And then when it's bottled, the final nosing, it's tasted again after marriage to ensure consistency before bottling. So if there's an age statement, it reflects the age of the youngest whisky in the blend. So in summary, blending whisky involves carefully selecting and combining different whiskies to create a harmonious and consistent flavour profile. And it requires the expertise of a master blender and a period of maturation to allow the flavours to marry together. So I'm not claiming to be a master blender, but if you have a few different whiskies at home, you can try making a blended malt. If you don't have any grain, but if you have a grain, you could then make it a blended Scotch whisky. So I've got 5 from the Spirits Embassy, but I'm going to add one. So the 5 they give me are a grain, and it's a Duncan Taylor single cask Invergordon 15-year-old, 55.1%. I've got a floral malt, which is a Battlehill Auchentoshan bourbon cask, 12-year-old, so 46%. Fruity malt, which is a Duncan Taylor single cask Glen, Moray, 16-year-old, 52.8%. Rich malt, which is a Battlehill Teaninich 9-year-old sherry cask matured, 46%. And a peated malt. This one's an unnamed Islay. It's a Battlehill and Islay 15-year-old, 46%. So, but I'm adding in a Maritime malt because I think I want to have a little oily and coastal nature in this. So I'm adding in Cadenhead's Cask Strength Old Pulteney 2006 14-year-old, 55.4%. So looking at all that, I think my blend will be around about the 50 to 51% ABV when it's all married together. So you should start with a base, and I'm going to run through the whiskies individually first. So you should choose a well-grounded grain, and I'm going to make this 50% of my blend. I'm just going to use a little drop to nose and taste before I put some in the measuring jug. So this is a Duncan Taylor single cask Invergordon 15-year-old 2009, cask number 52900498 from the Rare Old Grain series. So it was distilled in Invergordon in 2009 and spent the following 15 years maturing in a single sherry cask. It was opened in 2024 by Duncan Taylor, releasing 321 cask strength bottles for the Rare Old collection. So let's see what we have here. This is going to be the base of my malt. It's got lovely tears, thin tiered titling, but nice tears. And it's like sweet buttered popcorn on the nose. Ripe pears, there's a vintage marmalade, caramel latte, and chocolate raisins. It's like wet wool, vintage sherry oak. And there's a subtle menthol and lemon flavoured alcohol wipe at the back. Raisins, cinnamon and cloves. Some coconut milk and sweet corn at the base. We'll try the mouth. And you get that initial sweetness. It's quite zesty, candied pears, white chocolate and honey nut cereal bars. And you get wet wool, sort of vintage sherry oak, subtle menthol and lemon, toffee with roasted peanuts, cherry liqueur. So some sort of medium finish with a lingering heated black pepper and sweet vermouth. I'm going to use 50%. This is going to be 50% of my blend. So that's just under 40 mils. I'm just going to cleanse my palate. Now, we're next going to add some complexity with malt whiskies, and starting with a fruity malt for sweetness. So probably best to use a Speyside this. And the one I have is the Duncan Taylor single cask Glen 16-year-old at 52.8%. Again, I'll just do a little tasting of this one before adding to my blend. So this is a single cask Glenmorangie 2007 16-year-old. It was matured in oak cask 705931, ex-bourbon cask, and produced 139 bottles. It's distilled in November 2007 and bottled cask strength 52.8% in January 2024. So Glenmorangie sits on the banks of the River Lossy on the western side of Elgin. It has a beautiful location. It does have a few dark secrets. It was the site of a public execution in the area, with archaeologists called in during 2014 after 2 skeletons were found. It was converted from a brewery to a distillery in 1897 by MacDonald and Muir, who were the owners for many years, and it was expanded from 2 to 4 stills in 1958. Nowadays, it's one of the most innovative with its warehouse one releases and value for money distilleries out there. So this one, well, let's see, nice tears, quite a thin tiger in the end. And it's got a delicate sweetness. Ginger cake, pear drops, and a sort of single cream. It's like a pick and mix bag, foam banana sweets and pink mice. So I like butter yolk and sand and celery, but it's big on the foam banana sweets, which is a very common tasting note for Glenmorangie in bourbon cask. We'll try them out. And it has a mouth-coating sweetness with hints of oranges and nectarines, with cocoa, creamy vanilla. It's slightly custard-like, with that hint of banana again. Definitely a banana and custard vibe. But there's also a salty and pebble-like minerality, which cuts through all that too. So it's never a particularly sweet dram. It leans to dryness and minerality. And the finish is a lovely delicate oak, ginger and oranges, and it's got a very pleasant ending. So this is a classic bourbon cask matured Glenmorangie, and I'm going to add enough to make up to 20% of this in my blend. So 40 mils of, this is a bit of arithmetic now, 40 mils of the grain was 50%. So 80 mils in total. So if I'm going to make this 20%, that would be 16 mils of this to add to my blend, leaving a little drop left for further experimentation. So I'll just cleanse my palate again. So next we're looking for sort of rich and savoury notes, and you could consider a Craigellachie, or in this case what we have is a Battlehill Teaninich 9-year-old sherry cask matured at 46%. So Teaninich is not far from Invergordon, our base, so Teaninich and Unnamed, and let's see where we go with this. So this is quite young. This will be the age of my blended whiskey, the youngest whiskey of our pack. Thin tears. And these are fresh baked cinnamon rolls. It is a rich malt, and there's a delicate hint of marmalade, which adds a bit of sweetness and tang. Porridge and leaves. Aspirin tablets. Grapefruit skins. Cut grass. Wet newspapers. Not the fruitiest malt whiskey. Try them out. You get smooth, creamy fudge, followed by juicy peaches and toasted oak with gentle spice rounding out the palate. It's got a malty, grassy arrival, and then you get some grapefruit juice, lime, barley, Schweppes, and a little pine sap. And the finish is sweet, rather long given the strength. Grassy leaf, it's quite dry. Some whole grain bread in the aftertaste. It's lingering and there's a slight zestiness. Hints of ginger and cloves for a warming finish. So this is a pure malt whiskey, perhaps akin to what they were making in the Highlands in the 19th century. It's good, and above everything, it's utterly honest. I'm going to use this to make up about 10% of my blend. So I'm going to add 8 mils of this. I'll just quickly cleanse my palate again. Now, we didn't include an oily and coastal malt in the pack, but I'm going to go for one. This is for coastal and briny flavours, and so I'm going for Old Pulteney rather than Talisker, because we're going to add some peat later on. So this is a Cadenhead's Cask strength Old Pulteney from 2006, 14 years old, 55.4%. Again, this one's bourbon matured. Very pale coloured. Teaninich Bourbon was sold in 2006 and bottled in winter of 2020, producing 294 bottles at 55.4%. And again, it's quite a thin tears, but thick, rather tears, but quite a thin tide line. And we get this sort of cracked black pepper, orange sherbet, vanilla. So there is a saltiness, fruity, grass, citrus. It's balanced and harmonious with a very light sweetness, salty and slightly acidic. Prickles and coleslaw, there's a typical maritime note. Try them out. Malty, milk chocolate, golden raisins, and there's a little more sweetness in the middle part. Otherwise, it's just like the nose. So gherkin brine, oysters, and other whelks and clams. And the finish is briny, hoppy, blood orange, and the saltiness tingles for a time. Very pure, chalky and briny. Lovely expression of old Pulteney. So I'm going to add about 10 mils of this. So again, about 10%, a little over 12%. We'll say 12%. So I'll just cleanse my palate again. Next we're looking for a floral influence, and I think for that you should consider Auchentoshan or Glen. And I've got here the Battlehill Auchentoshan Bourbon Cask matured, 12-year-old, 46%. And again, you get sort of vibrant aromas of sweet grapes, hints of cinnamon and sweet oak. It's quite elementary, if not rudimentary. Get a bit of banana foam again, lemon drops and bubblegum. But then you get grass and green tea with a drop of nail varnish and custard and vanilla cake afterwards. It is quite pleasant, really. Try them out. So you get a refreshing zest of wine, complemented by the sweetness of barley sugar and candied walnuts. It is quite rudimentary. Cake is gone and grass has seized control. It's a slight salty touch. And on the finish, you get green tea, white pepper and citrus notes. And it leaves a refreshing and lingering sensation. It's a medium finish. Heavily sweetened green tea, lemon zest and kirsch. So I'm going to cleanse my, so this is certainly a floral note. And And I'm a rather fan of the nose of this one. I'm going to use this for about 10% of my blend, so again about 8 mils. Right, I'll cleanse my palate. So, next we're going to add some peat. And Peaty malt is a Battlehill Unnamed Islay 15-year-old 46%. So Battlehill and Islay 15-year-old. With peat, we have to be careful. We should use it sparingly as a sort of seasoning. Not much. In fact, I'm going to add this as like salt and pepper to my meal. I'm going to add this to my blend. So let's see what we have here. It has nice tears, and you get bonfire smoke, lemon drizzle cake, Scottish tablet, and a dash of pepper. And you get salty and ashy smoke. And that's all balanced out by some clean citrus fruits, which quite dominate the nose. Touch of oaky vanilla, some roasted nuts merging over time. Try them out. And you get more smoke, balanced by a honeyed sweetness. A rich note of roasted pecans and sweet spice, candied ginger, and it's got a remarkably similar profile on the palate to the nose, with the nutty notes coming to the fore, along with some peppery heat. And the smoke lingers on, mingling with a sweetness from the palate. It's a lovely longevity. It's relatively short with a mildly smoky finish. I'd guess this one, possibly a peated Buna from a refill bourbon cask, but I wouldn't rule out. I don't think it's Coolida, and I don't think it's Beaumont, but you couldn't completely rule them out. It's a classic no-nonsense Islay, and I'm going to use a little of this in my blend to act as seasoning. So let's see how we do. Probably about 2 mils. So that's me built my blend. And so when you're building your blend, you should really, I'm going to cleanse my palate actually. When you're building a blend, you should start small and add other whiskies in small increments to avoid overpowering the base. And use a graduated cylinder. 100 millilitres cylinder is recommended. This one's a 50ml one, but 100ml would probably make it easier to calculate percentages. And then you should let it rest, and you should allow it to marry for at least 24 hours or longer to allow the flavours to meld. And You can nose and taste the blend periodically, noting any changes in flavour. Keep detailed records and document your recipes, noting the percentages of each whisky used. And don't be afraid to experiment, trying different combinations, see what works best for your palate. And consider the why. Think about what flavours you want to enhance or introduce to the blend. And be patient. I'm going to nose and taste this in a moment, but you should allow it to marry for 24 hours or so to develop its full flavour profile. So let's see how this one turned out. So the CADS Blend 9-year-old is made using Islay, Lowland, Highland and Speyside malt whiskies, matured in ex-sherry European oak butts and refill ex-bourbon American hogsheads. And it was then blended with Highland grain whisky, matured in refill ex-sherry oak barrels. And the ratio is 50% malt to 50% grain, which is rather more generous in the malt than a lot of the proprietary blended whiskies you see out there. And of course this one is unchill filtered and natural colour. So let's see where we go. So it's quite a pale golden colour. And you get some bright produce appearing in the early nose. Cantaloupe, honeydew, cucumber and orange peel. And you get marzipan, maple and cinnamon rolls. And a whiff of steel wool stays in the back. And the smoke fades away very quickly after the first whiff. Starts with very sweet notes and gets darker at the end. It's a bit peaty with sherry, pears and sweet berries are present as well. Try them out. And it arrives simple but solid. Barley sugar, honey and lemon candy play up front. But it never gets too sweet. There's quieter notes of peppercorns, herbal bitterness, and tannin, which spice it up a little. It's quite thick stuff, creamy, and dark toffee dominate palate. And the dark fruits are very strong as well. It's got a good aftertaste, raw chocolate and a nice roasted coffee feel. And the sweetness and bitterness balance out in the finish with peppercorns and lemon candy lingering on the tongue. I'm going to try and mill water in this. Which will take it down to about 43, I suppose. You know, with water it becomes more floral, orange blossoms, and there's a more noticeable oloroso side to this. Try the mouth. And it's got a zippier zing with menthol, ginger, and a bit more tannin. And with water, it keeps the light sweetness, but the oak takes up a little more space. It's a very fine blend, and it's, I gotta say this, it's one of the best blended scotches I've ever had. It's like a deluxe blend. I was a bit wary about doing this blending, but the CADS manual has managed to surprise me big time. I wasn't really expecting a ride of my life with this, but it's nice, very drinkable. With water, it starts drifting closer to the run-of-the-mill blends, but not too tragically. Have some fun if you can with this. Try a bit of blending. See how you get on. Thanks for listening.